I'm Pastor Samuel R. Blakes. I'm the pastor of New Home Ministries, Baton Rouge and New Orleans, and this is my story.
Gotcha. So tell the world, for the people who don't know, I'm like, where are you from?
I'm from Holly Grove. And those who are from New Orleans, you know where Holly Grove is. It is a section in New Orleans that is known for crime and all of the other stuff. But for me, it was a community, and a place of love and a place that molded me, man.
Gotcha. So, growing up, I'm gonna jump straight into it. Like growing up as one, I'm like pastor's son. Hey, but how was it for you?
Being a pastor's son was good because my father never put on us restrictions that said we couldn't live. My father was not the kind of guy who would handcuff you to being who he is. He allowed us to be who we were, and we were just so appreciative of it, man. I made all of the mistakes everybody else made. I made all of the blunders everybody else made. He let me learn through living.
So, but being one pastor kid growing up in church, but how was it for you? Like, because I know people like, you can't do that, you can't do this.
Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes I kind of felt like I was overdosed on church. I was in church on Sundays and Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I was like, church supposed to be on Sunday. Y'all got it bleeding all through the week,
It was just a lot.
It was a lot. It was a whole lot. But, I didn't realize, man, that God was using that to prepare me for who I am and what I do today. Of course, we don't have as much church as my father did. We live in a different day. And, people have to have a life outside of church, but church is an intricate part of who I am and what I do and where I'm going. So church shaped me. I love church, man.
Did you know that you was actually going to become one pastor?
Yeah, well, I was a little different from my brother. It took him longer to figure out what he was supposed to do. But for me, early on, I knew what I was going to be, and I knew what I was going to do. As a matter of fact, I preached my first sermon, man, at 8 years old. I preached my first sermon at 8 years old. I remember it. I preached for about 10 minutes. And it was a monumental event in my life. So I knew early on that I was going to be a pastor. And a lot of folks say, well, are you a pastor because your daddy was a pastor? No, I'm a pastor because, and I'm a preacher because God called me to preach. My daddy used to say some were sent and some just went. So I like to believe that that it's the call of God and not just the motivation of my father that called me to this, bro.
Right. So, I heard, I don't know if it's a difference, but is there a difference from one pastor and a preacher?
Well, a pastor is one who is called to lead the congregation or be the head person as it relates to leading the congregation. A preacher is one who's called to preach. So everybody who preaches ain't a pastor. Right. Because everybody who preaches ain't called to lead a church. So that's the difference. Both of them are called to preach, but the pastor is also called to lead the flock.
Right. So, I always tell you, back in the day, but your father told me I was going to I was going to actually become one pastor, but you actually did. So I want to ask you this, like, but did your father actually see it in you, like, you are going to become one pastor early on?
If he saw it, he didn't say it because I don't think he wanted to be the motivation for me doing it. He wanted God to be able to tell me that. But he did tell me that the hand of God was on my life, but he never pushed me toward being what he was. because my father would always say to us, there's only one Robert Blake's Sr. And if you spend your life trying to be me, you spend your life being a copy. And a copy is never as brilliant as an original.
Yeah, but that's some strong words.
That's true, though.
So, and most people who don't know, like, but your father was one prophet.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just a gifting of God. I don't think it's an ability of man. I think it's a gifting of God. I think God speaks to man, and then man, in turn speaks to people for God. My old man never glorified himself as a prophet. He understood that was his calling. Right. And he would speak, but he wasn't gonna manufacture anything, and he wasn't gonna make up something. He would only tell it to you if he felt like God was saying it to him. And there are certain times that God uses me to speak prophetic words to people. I don't use the title prophet, but I don't think you have to carry the office of a prophet to for God to use you in prophecy. There are many things that have been prophesied over my life, and there are many times God has used me to prophesy stuff over people's lives. But yeah, God uses me in the gifting. I think God uses all of us at a certain point. You just got through saying, sometimes God shows you stuff, right. And then it blows your mind and trips you out. Right. When that stuff starts manifesting and coming to pass.
But the funny thing is, every time that I see stuff, I always think of your father.
Right.
Like, is this really like what he saw? Like, he wanted me to become this? But that's a different story. But for the people who don't know, we are actually sitting in his office.
That's right.
Right now.
That's right. This was his office. Very seldom do we even come in here. This room is just like he left it. He's been gone now for over 11 years. And this was his room. This is where he prayed. This is where he stayed. Got this big old television over here. They don't even make them no
classic.
More. Right. So, we still remember him fondly. The street out in front of the church, the city council decided to name it after him.
Hey, but it was only right.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask a question that people might don't know. I'm asking, like, far as you growing up with your brother, who was also one pastor.
Yeah.
How was y'all? Rivalry growing up.
Well, there are 4 years between my brother and I, so we from Holly Grove, so we fight. We knew how to fight, and we would fight like cats and dogs and all of that. But we would fight each other. You better not get in the middle of it, or we jump you, because we got that New Orleans in us. So we believe in the jumping ministry. But we would fight and we would argue. But the amazing thing is, today my brother and I work together in ministry, and he is my best friend, and we work seamlessly together, because the one thing my mother and my father taught us was to respect the gift of the other. So I respect what my brother's good at. He respects what I'm good at. And when I need to submit to him, I submit. And when he needs to submit to me, he submits. And we get it done.
New Home as a whole, like the church and all.
New Home is a family, man. It's a family. There are people in here who were in here when I was born. There are people who I've grown up with. I sung in the choir with. It's a family. It's a very large family. On a Sunday morning, just in the mother church, 1,000+ people will gather every Sunday. But it's a family. I believe that because a church gets big doesn't mean it has to be impersonal. Our church is very warm. It's very engaging. It's a family affair, and people love on each other. I believe churches become impersonal because pastors are impersonal. And when you got a pastor who doesn't love and doesn't hug and doesn't engage, that church takes on the nature of the pastor. So New Home is just a big family. We are in Texas, we are in Hammond, we're in Baton Rouge, we're in New Orleans. We're all over the place. But anywhere you go, you're going to feel that New Home spirit, and you're going to feel that New Home love.
So, being one pastor, do you feel like pastors get put on that one, pedestal?
Yeah, I think what has happened, man, is you got you had the old school pastors who kept it about God, but then you got a lot of new school pastors who make it about them. And this younger generation has brought hustle into the church, and we've forgotten, what the main thing is. The main thing is God. And a lot of guys have forgotten that my job as pastor is to lead, not to lord. My job is leadership. It ain't lordship. I'm not good enough to be anybody's lord. I'm not perfect enough to be anybody's lord. But this young generation has gotten off track, I think, in many instances because we've made it about glitz and glamour when in actuality it's supposed to be about God, man.
Gotcha. So I have this question because I used to feel like this too, but I'm gonna ask you for real, like
Yeah.
the street, the best way I can ask this.
Yeah.
People always assume that when you come into church that all the money is going to one pastor.
Man, I wish. There ain't no way in the world. There's no way in the world. One of the things that my father always taught me was to respect what belongs to God, because if you don't respect what belongs to God, you get yourself in trouble with God. New Home is a ministry that does too much for the money to be coming to my house. I am blessed. I make no qualms about it. I'm a blessed man, but I'm blessed because I make good, sound financial decisions as it relates to, property and what I'm going to do with my money and investments and things of that nature. But it's never about the hustle. Our church, during the pandemic, fed over 19,000 families. So, all that money can't be coming to my house. We're not flashy. We're not, trying to put on a show for anybody. We keep it humble. We keep it, as my daughter would say, young folk would say, we keep it hood. It's about people. It's about ministering to the hearts of people, and it's about reaching people where they are. It's not about flash and dash. No, the money don't come to my house. When they take the tithe up and the offering and all that, they don't put it in my trunk. It does not go to my house. It stays at the Lord's house. That's how we take care of all of these thousands of square footage buildings we have.
Gotcha. So we are here at this location, at this on a historic location.
Mm-hmm.
So how important it was for you to actually become the pastor at this location?
Well, it's special because my father spent 50 plus years pastoring this one church, and when he moved to this place, our building was a Jewish synagogue. And the Lord used him to buy that synagogue and renovate it because we had run out of space at our old building. And when we bought this place, it was dilapidated. It was basically falling down. And my father came in and we renovated the building and occupied the building. And we changed the neighborhood as a result. This was a drug-infested neighborhood where our parking was all drugs and prostitution and all of the above. And God used us to come in and change the neighborhood. So this location is very special to me because this is it's like Mecca for us. When we come here, we're coming home to New Home. This is the strongest representative of who we are as a ministry and who we are as a church.
Correct, gotcha. So speaking on this neighborhood, did you think that this neighborhood would actually look like this, like looking back at it since the '90s versus now?
No, man, this neighborhood has come from a long way. Like I said, where our parking was a row of prostitution houses. We would be coming to church on Sunday morning, and prostitutes would be soliciting folk while they trying to come in church. It was a real mess, but my father felt like the Lord led him here. And, where he leads, he feeds, and where he guides, he provides. So we bought this property, And consequently, when we bought the property, it was considered high by most pastors, the purchase prices. And they said my father was crazy for spending all that money on all that raggedy property. But now, this property is some of the most expensive property in the city of New Orleans because he had a vision. That's why, it's so important to have a vision for your life, because the Bible says where there's no vision, people perish. So thank God he had a vision. And because he had a vision then, we are experiencing the manifestation of that vision now.
In 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit.
Yeah.
I don't know how did it affect the church, but I'm gonna ask you like what happened and like what happened after. Like, did you have to come back and change the church up, or you do anything like that?
Oh man, Katrina was a monster for me personally, because when Katrina hit, my church was on the corner of Claiborne and Napoleon, where the CVS is now. My church was on the corner of Claiborne and Napoleon, and we had about 9 feet of water in our church. We had so much water until when I came back to look at our church, the organ, which was in the front of the church, was in the foyer of the church, blocking the door. About 9 of our church members were rescued. They lived in the balcony of our church for about 5 days before they were rescued from the roof of our church by helicopter. So Katrina was a monster for me. As a matter of fact, the only location of New Home Ministries we had open after Katrina was the location we had started 1 week before Katrina hit in Baton Rouge. It was absolutely crazy. My first service after Katrina, I had 12 people in church. My next service, I had 9. So Katrina made me have to rebuild our church all over again. But I'm thankful for it, man, because it taught me not to quit, taught me not to give up. And, I'm from NOLA, so we have a resilient spirit. And Katrina taught me resilience. Sometimes you preach it to people, but every now and then God puts you in position where you got to practice it. And I had to practice my resilience, and I had to have some fight in me, and I had to, fight through and wade through the waters of discouragement. There were times I wanted to cry and give up, but I held on. And today our church is stronger than ever because we fought through. So, yeah, Katrina was a mess.
Okay. Yeah, but that was my next question. Like, has there ever been a point, when you just want to give up?
Oh, man, thousands of times. There have been points in my life and in my ministry where I wanted to give up, not because God wasn't faithful to me, but because I wasn't faithful to him. There have been times that, I've suffered from self-inflicted wounds, and I did stuff I had no business doing. And, because a lot of times we want to paint the preacher as if he's perfect. But I'm very flawed. There've been occasions in my life where I've disappointed myself and even disappointed God. That's why I can preach about the mercy of God, because I needed it so much, man. There have been times that I've wanted to quit because people are hard to pastor, and we're hard to lead, and some folk are so stubborn they don't want to follow, and all of that stuff. But it takes me back to the song that we sung when I was a child. Just like a tree planted by the waters, I shall not be moved. So, yeah, there have been times I wanted to quit, but I didn't quit, and I couldn't quit.
Being in New Orleans, you have been doing a whole lot for the community, and
Yes, sir.
most people don't know, Birdman and his brother actually brought his They actually brought their turkey drive over here a few times.
Several times.
Yeah.
His sister is one of our good members. Kim is one of our good members. But in addition to that, for probably the last 35 years, we have fed the homeless every week with never having a government dime, no government funding. Just church proceeds. We fed the hungry, probably 200 to 300 every week for 35 plus years. Um, I believe that if a church has a heart, God will always keep that church in his heart, and God always bless that church. A lot of times we don't understand why God doesn't bless churches. It's because churches don't bless anybody. When the church blesses the people will bless the church. That's why when you come to New Home, out of all the folk we got in here, it takes probably 10 minutes to raise the offering. You ain't gonna never come to New Home and we spend 30 minutes talking about how many gonna give me this and how many gonna give me that. I believe that if folk see the church being a blessing, people don't have a problem blessing the church. And every Sunday there are rules for giving in our church. And these are the rules. You need to be willing and you need to be able. I don't care if you got $1,000. If you ain't willing to give, keep your money, because God doesn't want any money that you don't want him to have. But then secondly, if you ain't able to give, don't feel bad about it. Don't feel bad about it, because God can't require of you what you don't have. The church has to have heart for people. And when the church has heart for people, people will in turn have a heart for the church. So our church is blessed.
Got you. With that being said, I'm like, what's next for you?
Just the expansion of kingdom. You know, I want to see more folks saved, man, and more folk delivered. I want to be impactful in the lives of people. It's not about being famous. It's not about being notarized. It's not about having my name listed in who's who. It's about impacting the lives of people. I say all the time that my position, even though we've glamorized it, right? You know, in the church, we've glamorized the position of pastor. But the truth is, the position of pastor is a position of serving. It's not a position of fame and fortune. It ain't about just sitting up, crossing your legs, and folk bringing you water. It's about you bringing the message of Jesus Christ, the message of the kingdom to the people, and bringing people out of darkness into God's marvelous light. So that's really what's next. We're going to eventually build the Lord another house, another church, because our church has been beyond capacity for many years. But really, it's about kingdom, bro.
So are you gonna build it like around the same area?
I'm planning to build it back here on this grassy knoll we have back here. I'll tear this building down, which is our administration building, and I'll put the administration building inside the new building, and this building will serve for the parking I'll take up back there. It was a part of my father's vision, and it's something that's on my heart and on the heart of my brother, and it's something we're going to eventually get done.
Yeah, you have to do it for the big, for the big man up there.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Because he is one real legend, and I'm glad that he actually, had his own, street name behind him.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was humbling.
And speaking on, the homeless, like this church is, but it kind of cleaned up a little bit, but like this church is like 2 minutes away from the bridge where like a lot of homeless is. So like it would be kind of awkward for not to want to help, the people that's right there.
Yeah. Well, bottom line is this. Jesus says, I was hungry and you didn't feed me. I was naked and you didn't clothe me. I was outdoors and you didn't take me in. One day as a pastor, I will have to stand before God, and according to Scripture, I'm going to have to answer for everything I did, and I'm going to have to answer for everything I did not do. So we have to make an impact on the lives of people, particularly those who are less fortunate than us, or else, we're going to have to answer to God for it.
Right. So, transitioning to the new times,
Yeah.
I remember what you said after Hurricane Katrina, you had 12 to 9 people, but probably 2008, 9, social media started becoming heavy.
Right.
And but a lot of pastors didn't jump on it first. Some of them did. So, how was the transition? For you, waking up in the morning, learning how to actually record yourself and do different things.
It was different, because in the black church we have call and response. So you used to folk answering you back, but that camera don't talk back to you. So preaching to the camera was very, very different. But you know what I found out? I remember, my father was on television before. We were the first black church on local television, first black church on national television. And I asked my father one day, I said, how do you preach to the camera? Because he would sit at this very desk and they would film him. I remember Channel 26 would come in and film him. And I said, how do you preach to the camera? He said, well, you don't preach to the camera, you preach through the camera because you understand that folk are on the other side listening. So I ain't preaching to the camera. I'm preaching through the camera to the person that's watching.
Just hearing you say that he had a way with words.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Like, he preached through the camera.
Yeah.
But I felt that when you said that.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, you knew him, so you know.
I felt that one just now. But anyways, so but we're in a brand new time. The kids are in their phone all the time.
Right.
So like, do you feel like it's kind of difficult? Getting to with the youth because they're attention span is like so short. I want to say.
Well, I think our church has a lot. I mean, tons of youth. I would say that 50% of our church or even more is probably within the 18 to 30 range. But I think that's on purpose. I think that it's not by accident, should I say, because one of the things I try to do, and one of the things my brother tries to do, is apply the text to the times. So I don't get up with a bunch of thuses and these and thous. I preach it in a place where they can reach it. And I believe that if you preach it where they can reach it and you apply the text to the times, I believe that you can engage this young generation and also engage social media. I remember when I first came on, because I came on long before COVID and all of that kind of stuff. I was on every day, doing my prayer. And I had pastors to tell me, said, man, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you come on social media every day. It said social media is the devil. That's what they told me. They said social media is the devil. And I said, well, I feel like God wants me to do it. But then after COVID came, some of the same pastors who told me social media was the devil was calling me trying to get me to introduce them to the devil. Man, how do you do that? I said, well, I thought social media was the devil. No, social media is a tool. How you use it can be devilish, but it's a tool. And it is one of the ways by which I've reached so many young people. I'm 56 years old now. And, I pastor tons and tons of young people. At 56 years old, young people are sensitive to my voice because I'm purposely reaching for their ear. I don't want to lose them. So I don't want to lose my old folk, but then I don't want to lose my young folk. So what do I have to do? I have to preach a message that reaches in both directions.
Get the balance.
Yeah, I got to balance it. So social media has been a blessing to me, and young folk are the predominant population of our church.
Right. But that's very rare when they say social media is the devil. Like the phone is the devil. Anything you use, they want it.
Well, we like to demonize anything we don't understand.
I was about to say, do you think that people would like to just blame everything what they don't understand?
Yeah, we like to demonize anything we don't understand because we don't understand and we don't agree with it. We think it's the devil. No, it ain't the devil. It's a tool. Now, the way some people use it is devilish, but I use it for the purposes of the kingdom.
Right. And but sometimes just people I'm ahead of their time.
That's right.
Like I would think if social media was out in the early 90s,
my daddy would have been on it.
Big. Yeah, your daddy would have been the biggest out.
He definitely would have been on it.
Right. But he would have been very bigger because he was one of those people that actually thought to do it first.
That's exactly right.
So,
well, when my father the newspaper was the big thing back in his day. So he would take pages. He would buy pages in the newspaper. Television was the big thing. He was always on television, national and local. Yeah, he definitely would have engaged it because he was that kind of guy. He was always ahead of his time.
Like, what's your message to someone watching this, thinking about following, like in your footsteps?
Well, following in my footsteps is difficult. I think you got to be called to it, because if you ain't called to it, you're not equipped for it. But as it relates to following my faith, I would encourage people to get to know God, man, in a very personal way, because the truth is this: you can't hitchhike to heaven. You got to have your own connection with God. You got to have your own relationship with God. I am not where I am and what I am and doing what I'm doing because of my daddy, or because of my mother. I am where I am and doing what I'm doing because of my own personal relationship with God. So that's my encouragement to everybody who is watching, man. Get to know God. And getting to know God doesn't mean you got to be a pastor, doesn't mean you got to be a preacher, doesn't mean you got to, quote scriptures all day. It just means that you have to have a passion for God, and not only a passion for God. When you get a passion for God, you'll have a compassion for God's people. I love everybody, man, and my heart's desire is that one day I'll see you in heaven.
Gotcha. And also, last but not least, tell the world, what can they find you on social media and everywhere else?
Instagram, you can find me at SR Blakes on Instagram. YouTube, you can find me Bishop Samuel R. Blakes. Facebook, Pastor Samuel R. Blakes is my profile or my page. Samuel R. Blakes is my profile. TikTok, Samuel R. Blakes. I'm all over, man, and I'm bringing this message as strongly as I can.
Gotcha. All right, and we done.
All right, bro.
But that's your story.
Thank you, man. That's my story.